IT job in Bangalore, maybe I will not move because I know what happens to my family here. So I will do something lesser than that, but within, within some nearness to my home, so that I can combine my household work with my paid work. So you see, in a way, your unpaid work is also supporting your paid work of the men and women. So the men also are then free to move around, or even if they get transfers, we know that they do go, they can go because somebody is there to look after the household. So there is a lot of support from the unpaid work for the paid economy. That's also something you all should see. So it is increasingly becoming clear. Let me conclude now. I'm not giving you the whole details of the gender budgeting, but what we do in the gender budget is really to look at, of course, how to increase women's participation in paid work. I don't know whether you all have come across this whole issue of the declining workforce participation rates in Kerala and India. And Kerala is more terrifying because we have such high levels of literacy. So educated unemployment rates are absolutely, mind-boggling. 50%, 60% of women in rural areas are unemployed, educated women. So we want to increase their employment potential, but at the same time, we have to have an enabling environment to allow them to come out to work. So increased allocations to Anganwadis, other types of daycare centers, what are called daycare centers for the older people, Sayan Prabha, and then the social justice department. So that you put your mother or father in that in the morning when you go for work, and you collect them back in the evening. So, things like that we have to try and do to make better transportation services for them if possible. Make buses available at the time that women move to the secretariat offices, have more buses at that time. So there are so many ways in which we can help the women to reduce the burden that this whole unpaid household and care work has for them. So that is something which we are trying to do through the budget. I've just a copy of it every year now from the 13th plan. I don't know whether you all know that Kerala is the only state which is still doing the 5-year plan. So we have the 13th plan now. And 17-18 we brought out a separate budget on gender and child budget, we called it. It is culled out from the main budget, but it's given as a separate document. And this for the last 3 years now we are bringing it out. So it is now, but now 3 years of doing this, I myself have become a little dissatisfied, because I feel that one thing is, of course, that it is increasingly becoming clear that without doing away with certain blind beliefs regarding women, one of them being that menstruation is polluting and impure. I still cannot understand how any sensible woman can think like that. Something this is natural, a very natural phenomenon which has been given by God to them so that they can reproduce, and they are considering it, if they believe in God, it has been given to them by God and they believe it is impure. This is something which is, I am unable to understand why women among us at this age and in this year are still believing in things like that. So that is one sort of a thing. Then of course, and the socially constructed roles for women with the priority accorded to their household care work, a redressal of gender-based inequalities will continue to be a struggle. We'll have to continue to struggle more and more to get some sort of parity between boys and girls, men and women, unless we slowly also, simultaneously get rid of, that is how I said, bring about the cultural change. And that is what gives me hope when I see the Madil. And this year in the gender budget, we have kept money for a textbook module to be introduced in schools. A module on women's rights. Everybody should know the women's rights and the types of practices which are oppressive to women. And what is happening to women because of these oppressive practices. So Bismi should tell us really how law on paper has given us complete equality. Irrespective of anything, gender is not used in the constitution, but says irrespective of sex, class, etc., you have all sorts of equalities. But how in practice you find that because of this mindset of people, which still is operating on that old scenario of women the homemaker, man the breadwinner, how that sort of a thing makes it difficult for law to be put in practice unless, what do we say? we say there's a gender sensitive judge now sitting. That judge makes up, you see, so let me just finish this and I'll just end with a little story. So how do we address and overcome the major gender issue facing Kerala as also other states? This whole issue of the unpaid household care work and the fact that they are also victims of certain social norms and practices. There is enough evidence to establish the primacy of women and their work in India's growth achievement, which has not been adequately addressed in the planning process. I mentioned that earlier. One has to move beyond a special focus in the chapter on women and child to looking at women as growth agents in India's political economy across all sectors. This would mean that within our overall, we have to have an overall vision of how we look at women in our society. So in our overall approach to development of Kerala, as you know, 13th plan also has an approach paper to development, including specifically gender issues. Public expenditure would have to be redirected to schemes exclusively for women and making schemes which benefit both of them, making them also more responsive to gender concerns. We know that we cannot have all schemes which are exclusively focused on women, because we can't have all universities for girls or health institutions only for women. So many things. The larger part of public expenditure is on programs and schemes which are what we call composite, benefiting both men and women. So our concern for gender should be growing also in those schemes. So this, I think, is something which we have to, which we are conscious of doing, and which we think that men and women, there's a good mix of boys and girls here, that unless the men and the boys start thinking differently, starting with, I don't want a dowry, okay? Starting with that. If you people say, this is not something in our hands, our parents are negotiating. But you have to teach your parents. So I'm saying, the men have to play a very important role, and I know that nowadays, there's a lot of importance being given to what is called masculinity and men engaging women. Lots of groups have come up where men are saying, we want to help. We want to help establish gender parity. We don't want inequality. So lots of men are working for it. So we really need your help. It cannot be done with women alone. That's something we realize. All the gender awareness classes which should be for women, it has no meaning. If the men are standing outside the hall, they have to know what is gender, what is the issue, what is the woman's issue. So we want it to happen naturally. We don't want to have a confrontation. We want it to happen naturally within a household. The work is shared equally and fairly, and in the public places where you don't harass women. What is the problem in women moving at night? Yesterday I was traveling from Thrissur to Trivandrum. So we reached Trivandrum at about 2 o'clock. So you can imagine the whole dark roads. What is there? What is the threat to women? And I was in the car, of course. Only men. There are no animals. There's no lion coming out from the rice field or a tiger springing up from somewhere. The only danger is if men do not harass women, they can walk out at any time. They can walk any time of the day. Is that clear? So this is, when we say women and development, a lot is being done because of this very strong women's movement. They have been at it, especially after that committee on the status of women, the 74th committee as it is called. Because so little has been actually been achieved for women. So they have been struggling hard, all the laws which they keep diluting over time, that they have been struggling against, Even the PWDV Act, yes, the PWDV Act, that prevents, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. That was actually drafted by our, what's her name, the very well-known, she was also Deputy Attorney General, Indira Jaising. Indira Jaising plus a whole lot of women lawyers actually drafted that law. And they made it very sensitive to women. That means the woman can go to the protection officer and directly write a report. The protection officer need not call the husband to verify it. She can write a report and should be accepted by that. But do you think the courts are accepting it? They are not. So, here is a law which was made by women and very gender sensitive. Right to residence. You cannot throw the woman out. That's what the law says. And she gets a residence order. But when she goes home, she's thrown out. Now nobody can do anything unless the police intervene, community intervenes. So the community participation also becomes very important. Let me not go on. Let me stop here. And I hope the message that I wanted to convey is clear. Why we talk about women in development is because we want women to be able to have a dignified position in society. And they should not always be having to do Narega type of work, where the wages, you know what the wages in Narega are? 271 rupees. Now, 90% of the Narega work in Kerala has been done by women. Because in Kerala, no man is going to work for 270 rupees. Here the wages have become higher. And the man's aspirations, they will never work. So the man may be unemployed, but the woman goes and gets 270 rupees a day so that she can run the household. So this sort of a thing should not happen. We are equal and we are equal partners in development. Okay? So thank you so much for inviting me, and hopefully people will get interested in reading and learning more about women's positions in Kerala and elsewhere. What's happening in other countries, that's also very interesting to know. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your thought-provoking lecture. Still we have